We don't hear much about Yemen in the news anymore these days, but the war has been going on there for more than 8 years. Essentially, neighboring Saudi Arabia launched an air campaign in March 2015 to drive out the Iran-backed Houthi rebels who control the capital Sana'a. The fighting has continued ever since. And of all the many conflict zones that I have covered in my career, I have never seen a place with more heartache. It's a hard one, but let's take a small look inside Yemen.
With us now from Uzbekistan.
This is Hollie McKay in Kabul.
Mazar Sharif,
Taliban capital of Kandahar.
At a camp on the edges of Kabul.
Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan.
Iran, Turkey, Yemen, Saudi Arabia, also Burma, Russia, East Africa.
Sat through military tribunals and interviewed hundreds of soldiers, civilians, and government officials before, during, and after the horrors of war.
We have to understand the way that they think.
مضى حياة الذل يا ويله بالحزن جيبه في العالي مبداي والله صعب تبييله بعت النفس والمالي انجاز ما تلحق نبيله اللي يدل وفعالي بلدي بواجهنا نضحي له يا محلاها قرحة الآلي درب الشهادة زياني في مترس الشجعان يحليله على خطى عمار وبلالي والفارس اللي موجود خيله.
Despite the bursts of enthusiasm, most of the soldiers' time in and around the Sana'a front lines is spent waiting. The chewing of kot, a stimulant leaf, is the mainstay and important ritual of every single day. Everything else, including the fight, can wait.
I'm in America.
Hello, welcome for you and the American people, all people from American. Welcome in Yemen and hello, welcome in my country, Yemen, this area. And this my house here, it's very near. But inshallah, I will arrive it, inshallah, very soon.
The exchange of fire around Sana'a typically begins in late morning and goes through to the wee hours of the next morning.
يا ولد
عارف
قرابة يلا خلاص احسن يا امير يا حسن يلا
عارف
ايوه خلاص يا نجاع يلا انت المسرح يلا واحد المسرح اللي بيجي هانا في المسرح
عبدو
الميري بس ها الميري
But what interests me most as a writer are the civilians caught in the crossfire. Yemen was already the poorest country in the Middle East when the war began, and thus the level of suffering, especially for those living in camps because their homes have been blown apart, is almost unfathomable. And children always bear the brunt of the fighting. So many Yemenis have lost limbs. So many that workshops have been set up to teach other people how to make prosthetics. Often they're wooden and very uncomfortable. I also visited a school on the outskirts of Marib. Only it wasn't a normal school. It was a special rehab type facility for children who are recovering from being forced into militias as child soldiers.
مستوصف صحي مركز صحي رفض المركز الصحي عندما شافوا حالته وشافوا ريحته وشافوا الدود في عرضه.
There is barely a silver lining in Yemen. Everyone has been hurt in some way. The likes of Muhammad is lucky to be alive. He was set on fire and thrown into a garbage dump in part of the fighting.
Before this happened?
إيش كانت شغلة؟
And while there is food in Yemen, it is hard for many families to afford. I was lucky enough to live off bread and cheese for most of the time, but even that felt like a guilty luxury. Perhaps the highlight for me was seeing the strength of Yemeni women, especially these activists who brave threats day in and day out to try and release political prisoners from both sides of the conflict, and family members whose parents and loved ones have disappeared have also joined that fight. As it stands, more than 24 million people in Yemen are suffering from hunger and malnutrition, including 13 million children. All sides of the conflict are reported to have violated human rights and international humanitarian law. But will anyone ever be held to account?